to show you how I study the Bible and then give you some ideas of about kind of like the process that I take and how I put together um, a Bible study on a different subject. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this subject of anxiety, and I was reading through Ministry of Healing on Mind Cure, and I found it to be very helpful. But I'm going to start from scratch. So I'm just going to show you from the beginning. What I do is I go over, I have like a folder that I use, kind of like I have a video that I talk about where I encourage people to create an encyclopedia of topical subjects in the Bible that you have studied, that are your personal notes, that are categorized by subject. So that's what I do. This folder is where all my subjects are. So I'm going to create a new Google Doc because it's a new subject, and we're I titled them all the same because they're in alphabetical order, and I call it Study on Anxiety. Uh, and then I just hit Control B, Control Shift E to center it, and Control Shift open bracket to make it bigger. And if you create the title first, then when you click up here to rename it, see how it says Untitled Documents, it just automatically populates and it's good to go. I don't have to type it twice. So I'm just going to start with that. I just pasted it. So these are some of the things that are on there. It says many of diseases from which men suffer are results of mental depression, grief, anxiety, discontent, remorse, guilt, distrust. All tend to break down the life forces and invite decay and death. That's a powerful statement. People need to know about anxiety. And if you find that you are being anxious, if you find that you're worrying, you find that you are having troubles, then this is a really good thing to be intentional with your devotions and study the opposite traits of character. So what we're doing, let's say like I am feeling anxious about the future. I don't know about where my money is going to come. Maybe it's financial stress or relationship stress or just the unknown, these fear and worry that just perplexes the mind. Then this is going to really be a blessing for you and me. So what I do is, first of all, I like to have this miscellaneous notes section. I just bold that and I put that there. I actually just found something recently. If I hit subheading 2, then it puts it up there. And that's nice. I like that outline. So I just want to put all my miscellaneous notes there. Um, and this is where I start. And what I do is I pray to God. I say, Lord, please bring back to my remembrance whatever you'd have me to do. And I meditate. I meditate on the scriptures, on what verses come to mind when I think about anxiety. So as I think about it, I'm like, okay, I think of the quote where it says, worry is blind and cannot discern the future. I'm not even worrying about where it's found, what the reference or book, or I just want the phrase. I just want to dump everything that's in my mind and put it down. And I'm going to give myself some time to think and to pray about what else can I put on there. So I just, as you saw, I was meditating on some, let me zoom in so you can see a little better. I was meditating on um, some some verses that come to mind. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look up, I usually create a section called Things to Study, and this is another category where I make a list of different like word searches to do. So word search, what I'm going to do is care, careful, careth, and I'm going to search this in my electronic concordance, and I will find the different verses that talk about that. Other words for anxious or anxiety is anxiety, anxious, worry, um, I'm not sure, different things, stress, unknown. Yeah, these are some like synonyms. These will help me to find words because the thing is you have to keep in mind the Bible is written in like a different kind of English than we usually use. It's not like a modern English, it's archaic English. So if you use the exact word like anxiety, that's probably not going to be found in the Bible. So you're not going to search anxiety, but you can think, ask the question, and this is what I do. What Bible language would God use for anxiety? And care is one of them. Care means anxious. So that's definitely helpful over there. So I think I got a pretty good list. Now after I meditate and I start to do this, what I like to do is I like to make my screen take up half the screen, and then I open up eSword right here. And then I just go to work on looking up, be careful for nothing. So that's the first thing that I'm going to type in. Notice how I don't have the verse memorized, but I don't need the verse yet. As long as I have be careful for nothing, God brought that to my remembrance for a reason. So now it's my responsibility as a student of the Bible to now search for it and find out where is that, read the context, find out what's going on. So I'm going to type in keywords, careful. Oh, look, it's only found 7 times in the Bible. But I want to find this specific, oh, there it is, Philippians 4:6. I like that. So I click that green, and then it's all right here. So it says, be careful for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God. I like that. So then what I do is I copy that and I put it over here under miscellaneous notes, and I keep that on the top so I have access to it, all these things. But it says be careful for nothing, then I cross that off my list, it's gone. Be careful for nothing, and I like to underline it just because that's the main point. And then it says with thanksgiving. So being thankful is one way that we can overcome um, anxiety. So that sounds very helpful. I'm going to zoom that out a little bit because now it's hard to read. All right, so Philippians. So here's a cool tip, really awesome for Bible study. This is Philippians 4:6. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the TSK, the Treasury of Scriptural Knowledge, TSK for short. This is what I interviewed over 7 pastors, and they all are using this. If you've ever like heard a sermon from different people and you're like, whoa, where are they coming up with all these verses? This is powerful. It's like all like the Bible's explaining itself, and like never man spake like this man before. Chances are they're using the TSK. Most pastors, or I would say many pastors, know about this and they use it. And I would encourage you to use it too, so you can pull up some really powerful nuggets. So Philippians 4:6. Then I go over to commentaries, and I'm on treasure scriptural knowledge. So here's that word careful. What I like about this is because they're going to show me all the verses that talk about careth, caring. It's not just the word careful. Like this shows 7 verses on the word careful exactly, but this is going to show me that's like more than 7 verses because some of them are going to say, see, it says, take no thought how, um, how or what you shall speak. So take no thought, that's good. Take no thought. That's another phrase that I can look up and see, take thought. And I'm going to find, why take ye thought for rest? So like, take no thought for your life. It's like, why are you anxious about your life, what you're going to eat or what your body's going to be put in? Take ye no thought how you shall answer. So all of these are like anxiety, anxious. It's like, hey, stop being anxious. Why are you so anxious about your clothing for your life? So that's another, you saw how I just found more Bible language from this TSK. This is great. Casting all your cares upon him, for he careth for you. I'm like, yeah, that is the verse that I had up here. Casting all your cares upon him, for he cares for you. But here's the thing. I don't want to lose that. But if I click this, notice how my treasured scriptural knowledge changed. Now I'm over here. It says, casting all your care upon him, for he careth for you. But now this TSK is gonna bring me even more verses all about cast thy burden upon the Lord, and he shall sustain thee. Thou shalt never suffer the righteous to be moved. It's like, wow, my burden, my anxiety. So here's another phrase, burden. So that is a synonym with anxiety. In God I will praise his word, in God whom I have put my trust. I will not fear what flesh can do unto me. Oh, fear. That's interesting. Fear, if. Fearing. A lot of times fear and worry are together. Let's see how I use the TSK. But the thing is, I don't want 1 Peter 5:7 yet. I'm going to get to those. I want to go through all of these first. Here, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, the 3 men, they're not bowing down to the image, and they're like, look, we're not careful to answer you in this matter. We're not bowing down to your image, and we're not going to do it. And it's like, whoa, that's some strong language. So but I don't want to use that one. I can, but I don't want to. So I get to pick and choose this. Now, look at this title. It says, do not be anxious. Wow, how powerful is that? So this whole section is about anxiety. So in theory, what I'm able to do, I am able to take each of these. See how it says take no thought for your life? I can take that and I can go to the TSK and it says take no thought. All of these verses are on taking no thought. Cast thy burden upon the Lord. The cares of those that were choked up with thorns. It talks about the sower that went forth to sow. They were choked up with cares and riches and pleasures of this life. So the cares of this life, the anxiety, the worry, the fear of this life is what caused the thorny ground hearers to not have the good seed. That is powerful. So what I can do is I can just put that on there and say the thorny ground hearers. Wait, hold on. It was the cares of this life. It was the anxiety and cares of this life which caused the thorny ground hearers to not receive the word of God. That's powerful. So that's a little side note for when I get there, because I can actually take that and take it through the TSK, and I will. And by doing that, I never run out of scriptures to use. Do you see how simple this is? And how you can, like, what I'm going to do, this is how I usually do it, is I just start with one verse and go through the TSK and just go through as many verses as I can. And once you hit a dead end, then I go to the next verse where it's like, I have learned in whatsoever state I am, therewith be content. And then you go through the TSK until you get to a dead end. But you can be as exhaustive or surface as you want to be, because I know it can be overwhelming, but here's the thing. We just, like, how many verses did we just find in just a little bit about anxiety? You're on your way to a good start. Man's word, if of any value, echo the words of God. So as you're able to recall these things, now when someone says, hey, um, Brother Enoch, I am anxious and I'm struggling with anxiety. I don't know what to do with myself. I'm like, oh, let me give you some promises. Do you know what the Bible says about anxiety? They're like, no, I don't. It's like, well, I do, because I put together a study on this. Let's go over this. And I can just go down the list and tell them, hey, turn with me to Philippians 4:6. Be careful for nothing. So the solution is give thanks. Are you grateful for what you have? Write 10 thank yous every single day. 10 new things you're thankful for 90 days. At the end of 90 days, you'll have 900 things you're thankful for. I've been doing that for about, what is that? Over a year now. That's a lot of things to be thankful for. And just like, that's going to change what makes you anxious. That's just one thing. And you just go down the list and help remind them of the promises of God. And so here is a really powerful way for you to um, not be anxious. So now that we have that, I'm not going to go into too much more detail on this. You're basically getting the gist. This is one of the way. This is basically how I start doing some studies. But as I do this, because it's related, I'm going to take that and I'm going to go back to the study on mind cure, and I see that this anxiety, and I see study on anxiety. And if I highlight this study on anxiety, hit Control K, and I can paste the link right here. And then what I can do is delete all this so it doesn't clutter up an extra section. So there's a whole study on anxiety. When I click that, it's just going to go straight to the anxiety study right here. So basically, that's how I study for this, and this is my process whenever I'm studying a new topic. And as this gets bigger, I start to categorize it up here, and I start saying like, this is all I don't know. Start having different categories. It's hard for me to visualize it now because I don't have it yet, but based on as my miscellaneous notes increases, then I look at these verses and I start to ask a question: which ones are connected? Which ones go together? And if I see 3 verses that go together, I'll copy them and then I will paste them up here and I'll put a headline. It'll be like subheadline over here that's categorized, and then I paste the verses that that go together, and then you know, then I have another section, and then I have all of these different subheadlines all throughout the document that looks a lot like this study on mind cure. As I scroll down, I see it on distrust, disease imaginations, sympathy. All of these used to be in miscellaneous notes at one point or another, but then I started finding a lot of verses on sympathy. So I started to collect all of these on a headline of sympathy, as you can see that. But this is under the subcategory because the main thing we're studying is it's a study on mind cure. But then as I go throughout there, these are principles. These are kind of uncategorized right there. So this is more of my miscellaneous notes here that I still need to go through. But as I read, I bold things that really stand out to me. I bold and underline them that I really like. So I think here I'll go miscellaneous notes as you find that. And if you notice under the sympathy, I spent more time studying about sympathy. This is a category. All of these quotes and verses are regarding sympathy, but down here at the bottom, there's other verses that came to mind, like the verse in Hebrews, he was touched with the feelings of our infirmities. I remember quotes where he spoke with sympathetic tones. He had pity with his voice. He spoke with a very emotional voice. So Jesus grew. Oh, it was because of the sympathy that he attracted the large crowds and contentment. Um, so these are things that came to mind, and these are things that I'm going to study as I continue, but one thing at a time. And look up that verse, do the TSK, and look up other verses, do the TSK, and just follow it until it's a dead end. Then I'm going to go into the next place, whether it's a quote or a verse from whatever it is. But that's basically how I put together my Bible studies. That's how I start them, and then I get something that has. Let me see if I have something um, something bigger. Here's this 8 laws of health. I did the same thing with this. It all started with meditating, and it got bigger. Then I went through them, and it grew into a larger publication. Here, this is all on the introduction to the laws of health, and then this is godly trust. All the verses on godly trust. This is open air, and then now it's a 49-page document. And this is all on open air. So there's a subheader of posture and how our posture plays a role to our health. This is respiration, the way that we breathe, ventilation and sunlight. So there's a section on our homes and getting that. Where should we breathe from? Our nostrils, and daily exercise. So you get to see kind of like this is a category how I put together the notes, and you see there's not a whole lot of commentary here. Sometimes there's little notes under the verses when I want to make other connections or not forget something. And then sometimes there's some scientific research that's backed by the World Health Organization that I got from Wikipedia. Very, very helpful. Put some articles together. This is basically how I study, and I do this each subject. And if I run out of things to do, things to study, then I go over to my things I would like to study document, and then I check out that. So if you want to know more about this document, I encourage you to watch the video that I recorded that's called These 2 Pages Change My Religious Experience, where I talk more in detail about the things I'd like to study and how to keep track of these ideas that you have so you're not all scattered all over the place. But I wanted to give you an outline of what my studies look like so that you can get a better understanding of maybe some ideas that might work for you. But I'll tell you, this is what works for me. It works very well. And I'll give you this one tip. If you're preparing for a sermon, much easier than starting from scratch and doing a sermon, it's so much easier to take something like this 8 laws of health and out of this document, then extract the highlights, extract the things that I want to emphasize and use that for a sermon, rather than if I were to start with a blank page and say, okay, I'm going to do a sermon on the 8 laws of health or a presentation. That can be pretty overwhelming. But if you just make it a habit and a lifestyle of documenting everything that you learn and study and put all of everything you've ever learned on a page, then you have access to it. And from that page, you can give Bible studies at any time, any day, no matter where you go. And you'll always be ready to give an answer. But and that's just me. Like you can start a study sermon presentation from scratch if you want. Personally, I think it's much, much harder that way. It's so much easier just every day you're already having devotions, put together a personal encyclopedia by subject of Bible and health subjects, and then when it's time to speak, look at the subjects that you have the largest documents from, and then pull from there. And I'd like to, and let me know if you want to see a video about how to uh, once you have a larger document, how to put together a sermon and form that. I'd love to know if this is a type of thing that you're interested in the comment section below. Share this if this is something that you know someone could benefit by. Like it if this has been a blessing to you, and leave a comment below to just tell me if you have any ideas or suggestions. It would be really helpful to know if there are certain subjects that you would like me to go over in a practical sense to understand what this looks like. Tag me below as you start applying this to your life and let me know how it goes. I'd love to hear your testimonies. Have a great day. Till next time, God bless.